welcome back to day 23. I am so excited to be here with you. Today is all about overcoming self-doubt and silencing your inner critic. So if you are anything like I used to be, where maybe your mind is constantly playing these negative stories, like always telling you how you're not enough, replaying the things you said or did or didn't do or didn't say, and just, getting in this loop of imperfection and criticizing yourself, or doubting who you are and how you're showing up, then this video is going to be so helpful for you. As you dive on, as always, drop some hearts. Let me know that you're here. If you're catching the replay, comment replay so that I know that you made it, and feel free to ask any questions and I'll check in as I go. So this is something, as you can see in the caption here, I recently did a study. I sent this out to over 30,000 people on my email list, my Instagram, Facebook, YouTube platforms, all these different people in my audience across all my pages. And I was shocked, absolutely shocked by the number of people who responded saying that they struggle with self-doubt and with their inner critic. So over 50% of the applicants, the people who replied to this survey, said that that's something they struggle with. And so I was just thinking about that this morning, and so I was like, you know what, that's what we're going to talk about today, because if that's you, you're not alone. So firstly, that's really important to realize that you're not alone in feeling that way. Secondly, I know for myself, like I spent most of my life really stuck in a place like that where I had so much self-doubt, and it didn't matter whether it was in relationships and friendships. It didn't matter if it was in like school, all the way from like elementary to university. It didn't matter whether I was playing on my sports teams. Like there was just this constant cloud, we could call it, like a cloud of self-doubt, where no matter what I was doing, no matter what the grades were or the marks were, or even if people did compliment me, I personally just still doubted myself. And so this is where we come into task 1 for day 23, is going to be to look at where you're looking for maybe some external validation right now. Hey, welcome. Glad you're here. So look at where you're looking for external validation, and you might be kind of like, wait, how is this related to self-doubt and the inner critic? But it's related to the fact that, for example, I was receiving compliments from people, praise from teachers or coaches or my family, of like validating, hey, great job in that sports game, great job in that soccer game, great job at the volleyball game, great job at school, or another great report card. Like I was getting external validation, but because internally I still didn't believe in myself and I didn't feel good enough, it didn't really matter. So I didn't actually receive that. I wasn't allowing myself to receive it, to feel it, to hold it. And so actually I grew up really believing like nobody was acknowledging me. And maybe this will connect in some ways. So number 1 is looking at, where are you currently looking for some external validation? What are the themes? Is this specifically like in your work life where you're feeling like you're not acknowledged and recognized? Or is this specifically in relationships? Just using that as your starting point, okay? Now, what that brings us to is realizing that no matter how much external feedback you get, maybe you'll realize you're like me, where you're like, oh, there actually were people complimenting or praising or saying I was doing a good job, but I just wasn't capable of receiving it because I didn't believe it myself. I'm getting some comments. I can totally relate and connect to this. Yes, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that it's connecting. I got a tickle. Okay. So for me, maybe you're like that, where if you actually reflect and think back, you might notice that you actually were getting a lot of praise, but you just never received it because that inner worth wasn't there. And this is a big light bulb moment. So be very honest with yourself around this, and it will change so much for you. Because I continued to look externally, and I kept feeling like, oh, like, why aren't my coaches giving me more credit? You know, like, I mean, in university, I was like working my ass off so hard every day with so much physical pain and injuries, and I didn't speak up or sit myself out because felt like I was very needed on the team, being the only person in my position at the time. And then I felt so unappreciated and unvalued. And it created a lot of resentment and anger. And I was like, why is no one acknowledging me? And why is no one like validating and saying good job, or realizing like how much pain I'm pushing through every single day just to be here? But if I look back in hindsight, I can see that there actually was validation, but I still wasn't able to receive it because it wasn't enough. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be or expected it or looked for it, or I just still didn't believe enough in myself to actually receive it. So my own self-doubt was sabotaging me from receiving the validation or the connection or the love from other people. And that's so, so huge and so common. So kind of merging into that inner critic, it's like, why? You know, why is that inner critic so negative and keeping us stuck? Why is that inner critic, you know, replaying those stories, making us feel bad? And it all comes down to programming. It all comes down to what we observed and saw and learned as we were growing up, that then created our beliefs about ourselves and created that self-talk, right? Because every single one of us was born as this beautiful little baby who was nothing more than just like a bundle of love and energy, and here to just like absorb and observe and take in the world. And yet most of us ended up taking in and observing and absorbing a lot of programming, a lot of conditions, a lot of judgment and criticism and labels of good or bad or right or wrong. And so that created this constant inner critic being fueled around like how we talk to ourselves, where we're focusing our attention and energy. So if I look at myself, it's like, wow, I can see the stuff I was talking about, and the way I was talking to myself was just so programmed in this really limited way. Let me know if you can relate to that in the comments below. And so task 2 for today, actually wait, I'll go back to that in a second. The way that I shifted out of this was through the deep mindset, the deep energetic work. And I have an incredible training. It is going to be linked down below. It's my mindset training. It's got the exact 3 steps, and I dive in way more in depth into what exactly I did to silence that inner critic, because it's going to take me way too long to try and talk about it on this video. But it's powerful and it changed everything for me. So that will be dropped in the links down below if you want to check that out, to learn exactly how to do that and the exact step-by-step process, so you don't have to spend like ages searching and trying and, you know, exhausting yourself in the process. That's exactly what I teach in the training and what I teach my clients and support them with. So my inner critic really continued to run the show until I realized, wait a minute, I'm pretty unhappy giving my inner critic this much power. So I want to try something different. I want to see if there's another way, a way for me to take my power back in this process. So that's what I started doing, and that's what I share inside that training. Now, task 2 for you today on this training here, this 30-day challenge, is going to be to reflect and journal, write out some of the things that your inner critic most commonly says to you. So like, is it always saying like, I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or nobody likes me, nobody appreciates me? Like, what is your inner critic? Is it judging and saying, oh, you said the wrong thing again? Like, so embarrassing, right? my inner critic used to say that all the time. And that's why then I was afraid to speak up, because I always judged myself for everything that I said or didn't say. So write down some of the things that your inner critic says most commonly, and then write down underneath that maybe 1 or 2 memories of where this may have started from, okay? And this is like a deep dive into a lot of the work that I do teach my clients of finding the root cause, because when you understand this and you can see why your inner critic is acting this way, then that's where you can make these really powerful shifts to change that, to reprogram in something different. So that will be task 2 for you. Really dive in, journal on that, look at that root cause of where it may have stemmed from and what are the most common things your critic is telling you. And just like as a side note or a final note before I end this video is remembering that like your inner critic isn't you, right? For most of my life, I believed that's who I was. So I believed every story that my mind was telling me. And this is what I see so often. And this makes sense why 50% of the people who filled out that survey from me said they struggle with self-doubt and their inner critic and ever feeling like they're good enough. Because most people believe every single thought that they're telling themselves. Most people believe every single one of those stories. And I'm here to help you see that you're so much more than that story and that you don't have to give it as much power as you have been, okay? So again, check out the mindset training for more support on that. It's not just about mindset. That's just the easiest way to explain it. But it's really about looking at the inner critic that has been programmed, our mind that has been programmed to think and talk and act a certain way and believe certain things. And we actually have the power to realize, wait, we're like separate from that. We're separate from that inner critic. And we can also now reprogram in new thoughts, new beliefs, new actions, a new way of being and talking to ourselves. So it's so powerful, really profound stuff, and has absolutely changed my life, because now my inner critic is like very quiet. She's still there and she still comes out from time to time. She still comes out when I'm in like a new situation or I'm like pushing my comfort zone in some way. But majority of the time, that inner critic is very quiet now. And I have control, and I've changed the programming. I've changed the patterns in the way that she thinks and speaks, and how much power... Excuse me. That's like 2 days in a row I've sneezed on these. We're going for a record. My inner critic has changed a lot, and that's what's brought me so much freedom. I would not be traveling the world. I would not have started my own business if I hadn't gotten a handle of my inner critic. I would not have, really create massive boundaries in relationships and broken free from a lot of those things had my inner critic still taken control and been like driving the car, so to speak. So this is work that will change all areas of your life. Definitely give these homework tasks a try today and check out the training. And I will see you tomorrow for the next video. Let me know if this was helpful down below in the comments as well. I can't wait to see what comes up for you as you do this work, and we will talk soon.